Hi, this is Fern G. Carr, website www.ferngzcarr.com. Welcome to my Facebook Live reading, War, Astronomy, Part 1, War. I'm Fern G. Carr, and it's an absolute pleasure to be with you here today on Facebook Live. And I would like to, of course, thank everybody for tuning in. But I would also like to be sure to thank the League of Canadian Poets and the Canada Council for the Arts for their sponsorship. That's very much appreciated. So, as I mentioned last week, I'm actually used to doing in-person readings. So this is a little bit of a novelty for me. And when I do my in-person readings, I have people who introduce me. So this time, of course, I have to just introduce myself. So I'll give you a bit of information about me. And if you want to find out more, what you can do is you can go to my Wikipedia page. If you go under Fern G. Carr, remember the G and the Z, please. My website is www.ferngzcarr.com. I'm a full member of the League of Canadian Poets and a member of the Federation of BC Writers. I write and translate my poetry in 6 languages, but today it's going to be English only. My poetry collection is called Shards of Crystal. It's published by Silver Bow Publishing. Now, I've been published roughly 700 times worldwide, but I'm very grateful for having received several honors, but my most profound honor, and I'll be going into this in more detail later in the astronomy section, is the fact that one of my poems is in permanent orbit around the planet Mars on NASA's MAVEN spacecraft. So that's my big thrill. So if this is your first time joining me, if you weren't able to make it last week, what I'm doing is I'm doing a series of 4 presentations on the first 4 Saturdays in May, and I'm doing 2 themes per reading. So today's themes are war and astronomy, and what I'll be doing is I'm going to be reading for about 20 minutes, and I'll follow that with a brief question and answer period. So please feel free, if you have any comments, just to type the comments in the comment section as we go along, and questions, of course. And once I'm finished doing my reading, then I'll be happy to answer those questions. So to get started, as I said, the first theme is war. Now, General William Tecumseh Sherman is famed for his quote, "War is hell." And for those of us who haven't experienced the horrors of war, I don't think can ever really truly appreciate the trauma that's been suffered by soldiers and civilians in those particular situations. So the question is war hell? And I invite you to listen to these poems that I've written and judge for yourself. Now, what I've attempted to do in this brief period of time is do a little bit of an overview of various aspects of wars, different scenarios. I'm going to start off with one called The Devil, and that's a chronicle of the heinous genocide committed during the Holocaust in World War II. And this is a story, though, of struggle and victory. The Devil. The devil greedily licked his lips as the lambs were led to the slaughter, perched on his haunches, cackling derisively and salivating unholy water. Mercilessly, he lay in wait, tail flicking like savage beast. As the masses fell prey to his guile, they indulged in carnivorous feast. The blood dripped from their greedy lips as they witnessed with glazed eyes the carnage that only brainwashed minds could ever realize. With forked tongue, the devil enticed man down the slippery slope, inciting patriots to genocide as the fatherland's only hope. Inferiors contaminate our master race. They are a genetic mutation. The final solution for these lowly vermin is wholesale extermination. The devil shrieked as his flared nostrils snorted cyanide gas into the death camps of Auschwitz, where millions were murdered en masse. What blinded the devil's henchmen to such depraved animosity, to so obediently perpetuate these vehement atrocities? It began insidiously with propaganda and misplaced blame, leading to suspension of freedoms in justice's name. Kristallnacht night of broken glass proved an ominous sign, a flight from pandemonium, thwarting the devil's design. Cordoned off into ghettos, some of the lambs were held in submission. Exposed to poverty and disease, they were incapable of opposition. Others were callously executed randomly on the spot. A period of intense culpability that history never forgot. The devil flexed his muscles as he seethed with murderous lust, reveling in hateful sadism and betraying his country's trust. The lambs were lured into the devil's clutches via deportation. With cunning lupine rhetoric, he ordered their transportation, unfittingly in cattle cars not worthy of his bleating beasts. Packed so tightly their movement restrained, they could barely breathe. Ruthlessly flocks were rendered asunder, ewes separated from rams, perversely mocking the innocence of these tender little lambs, whose juicy flesh would soon be cleansed in preparation for the altar, a sacrificial rampage from which he'd never falter. Move, rats, you will be deloused. Step quickly into the shower. He howled triumphantly in an orgy of diabolical power, unable to fathom any method to the madness of his sinister plot. The terrified lambs couldn't predict those to be gassed and those not. Hiding his profanity from the outside world was an act of cowardice, attempting to disguise his vicious obsession and genocidal avarice. Yet smoke still belched from crematoria with telltale acrid smell, unable to camouflage the flames of those who burned in hell. But the devil forgot that the Bible proclaims the meek shall inherit the earth. In fact, the lambs were courageous survivors who never lost sight of their worth. Despite lack of food, abuse, disease, and experimentation, they valiantly fought to exist, escaping hell's conflagration, surmounting astronomical odds defiantly and with persistence. They ensured their children's future by their tenacious resistance. These traumatized heroes were survivors, right to their very core. Tragically, they bear the devil's brand of the ravages of war. So now I move on to a more modern era topic, if you can call it that. This poem, Hell in New York, September 11th, 2001, has also been published, well, under that title, and it's also been published under the title Suicide Bomb, because it actually could be interpreted to describe that situation. But I did write it to describe the fateful events of September 11th, 2001, 9/11. Hell in New York, September 11th, 2001. Cavernous thunder shattering normalcy. Sirens, cries, shrieks. moans, whispers. Shards of metal and glass raining in torrents. Rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat. Chests impaled by metal girders. Corpses crushed, smashed, oozing blood. Eyeballs frozen wide open in terror, coated in soot. Body parts strewn asunder. A finger here, still wearing a wedding ring. A foot there, some toes missing. Slight movement under the rubble. Then stillness. Now, for my last war poem, I might be a starry-eyed optimist, but I really believe that every country's goal should be a world without war. I don't know if that will ever come to fruition, but what is happening now with our current situation with modern technology, we are in the bizarre position of being able to witness events that we've never been able to witness before. And this poem is about that in part. It's quite surreal. It's called War, News at 6, and then in brackets, AM. Is media technology an assault on our ethics? A fundamentally amoral phenomenon provided for our entertainment, allowing us to bear instantaneous witness to the ravages of war? Orange flashes and pillars of smoke, bodies on fire fleeing the carnage, snipers spitting bullets from gutted buildings, a mother with a child in one arm, a pet dog hooked under the other, scrambling to the nearest bomb shelter. Infrared night vision cameras tracking tanks as they advance across desert sands, amidst volleys of anti-aircraft artillery, shattering the sky with their fireworks, mocking the silhouettes of charred palm trees in a land that could have been a tourist haven, spared from a despot whose Svengali wiles mesmerized onlookers thousands of miles away with the perverse attraction of an accident scene. We passively listen from the comfort of our homes at any hour of day or night, obsessed by the trembling voices of reporters. Insulated from the dangers of battle, we become voyeurs as we are vicariously placed on the front lines. Acknowledgements. All poems contained herein copyright Fern G. said Carr. Part 1 is an excerpt from the original full video, which was kindly sponsored by the League of Canadian Poets and the Canada Council for the Arts. Thanks very much for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to like, and please be sure to subscribe. For more poetry, my book Shards of Crystal is available on Amazon. Thanks again, and stay tuned for a new video every Wednesday.